Welcome back to History on a Hog. I'm your host, Captain Boz. Well, I've been looking into the mystery that is the Newport Tower, which could be one of the oldest stone structures in all of North America. And it may predate, by more than a century, the earliest English colonial settlements here. Located on the banks of the Narragansett Bay in Newport, Rhode Island, the question of who built it is still very much unanswered. In part one, I started to describe some of the theories of who may have built it, from the very first English colonists to Native American tribes. Or was it 12th century Irish monks who may have ventured out this way? Or was it the Vikings who may have been here in 1000 AD? And then there have been some wild theories, like the Chinese may have built it. A Chinese expedition may have ventured all the way from the south tip of Africa all the way to the North American East Coast and erected this tower sometime during the 1420s. Pretty wild stuff. But my favorite theory is that it was built by the Knights Templar. They could have come here during the late 1300s or early 1400s in search of a place to hide their treasure from the prying eyes of the French king and the Catholic Pope, who had the Templar order brutally disbanded, more like murdered, in 1307. Okay, you're all caught up now. So let's move on and take a look at the last few remaining theories of who could have built it. The sixth theory of who may have built the tower involves the possible survivors of a 16th century shipwreck involving Portuguese sailors. Portuguese explorers and brothers, Gaspard, Miguel, and Vasco Corte Real, were on an expedition to find the famed Northwest Passage in the northern latitudes. With a fleet of 3 ships, they sailed from Portugal northward towards Greenland and Labrador around the year 1500. But the ships were caught in a bad North Atlantic nor'easter storm along the way. The fleet was dispersed by the storm, and 2 of the brothers and their ships were never seen again. Not far from Newport, in the town of Dighton, Massachusetts, is a large, strange boulder that is covered with carvings and what appears to be navigational coordinates. One controversial translation of the carvings read, I, Miguel Cortez Real, year 1511. In this place, by the will of God, I became chief of the Indians. Some historians believe that this inscription proves that Miguel and Gaspar Cortez Real reached the Newport area, where they built the Newport Tower in hopes of attracting rescuers. It's a possibility, I guess. For the next theory, I want to circle back to the original Verrazzano expedition in 1524. Remember him? He was the very first European explorer to travel to and map the entire eastern coast of North America. And he was the first European to discover New York Harbor, Long Island, and Narragansett Bay, where he supposedly saw the already erected tower sitting there on a hill overlooking the bay. There is at least one modern historian that believes there was a secret, ulterior motive for the Verrazzano voyage. This historian believes that the primary mission given to Verrazzano by the French king was in fact to go find and contact a Templar colony that may have been established in Narragansett Bay by no other than Prince Henry Sinclair of Scotland around the year 1400 AD. It is believed that the orders given to Verrazzano was to find the lost Templar treasure and bring it back to France, by force if necessary.
and I think this theory is very plausible. I believe that this structure could have, and I do stress could have, been built by Prince Henry Sinclair of Scotland sometime between 1398 and 1400. Why do I say that? Do you remember me telling you about him in my very first History on a Hog series, The Westford Knight?
He was known to be associated to what remained of the Knights Templar order during the late 1300s, and it has been theorized by some historians that his castle at Rosslyn, Scotland, was the initial destination of the vast Templar treasure when it was hastily evacuated in 1312 after the bloody massacre of the Templars by the French king. A Templar fleet of ships was known to have departed La Rochelle, France in 1312 with the treasure on board, and it has never been seen or heard from again since then. Remember, this treasure is believed by some to have included the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. And there is a lot of circumstantial historical evidence that Sinclair may have led an expedition to North America in 1398, with the goal of moving and hiding the Templar treasure from the French king and the Roman Catholic Pope, who were both looking for it, and they were closing in on Sinclair and Rosslyn. I believe that Sinclair moved the Templar treasure out of the Orkney Islands in 1398 and sailed via Iceland, Greenland, and Newfoundland to Nova Scotia. And then he hid the treasure there in Nova Scotia, 100 years before Columbus officially discovers America.
And I don't think that Sinclair stopped there. After hearing stories of great riches in the possession of a Native American tribe that was located further to the south, I believe that Sinclair decided to continue his voyage south and find that Native American tribe and those riches towards Cape Cod and perhaps into the mouth of Narragansett Bay, where he decided to set up his camp on the highest point of land that overlooked that bay, the place that we now know as Newport, Rhode Island.
Many people believe that it was Henry Sinclair who built the Newport Tower as a church, and perhaps as a possible repository for the Templar treasure, and that he built this structure as a beacon for returning European sailors in order to relocate this place. Many proponents of the Sinclair theory point to the Westford Knight marker, a carving that was intentionally chiseled into a granite rock face in Westford, Massachusetts. The carving, which is weathered and faded, is consistent with the stone that was chiseled a long time ago, and it seems to show the image of a dead European Scottish medieval knight from the late 1300s.
My personal opinion is that the Westford Knight carving and the boat stone found nearby proves that the Sinclair expedition made its way south from Nova Scotia and could have, and I stress could have, made it as far south as the Newport area. It's my belief anyways, and I'm not alone in this belief. And before I wrap this up, let me add this postscript to all of the theories that I have already presented here. While I was on location filming this episode at the tower, I was approached by the owner of the nearby Newport Tower Museum, Mr. Jim Egan. We got into this spirited discussion about the origins of the tower and who may have built it. We covered all of the theories that I've already presented to you here. But he offered a new theory that I had never heard about before.
Jim told me that he has researched the tower for over 40 years, and he strongly believes in a theory that little know about. And that theory is that the tower was built in 1583 by part of an English expedition to North America commissioned by Queen Elizabeth I of England. Jim went on to say that in 1578, Queen Elizabeth awarded letters of patent for the exclusive right to discover and settle all of North America to one man, an adventurous English nobleman, Sir Humphrey Gilbert. Gilbert then went on to form an expedition team with several noted English scholars, cartographers, navigators, and architects. And one of them was a man named John Dee, a noted scientist, architect, and celestial observer of this era.
Dee was directed to proceed to the astounding bay described by Verrazzano some 50 years earlier in his expedition report. Dee was to explore the area and find a suitable location for the establishment of an English colony at the mouth of that bay, which he did. In 1582, a preliminary expedition consisting of 2 ships set sail for Dee's River, what Narragansett Bay was called then, to locate and prepare a fort so that it would be ready when Sir Humphrey Gilbert's expedition arrived later in 1583. This preliminary expedition was under the command of a guy named Anthony Brigham. Brigham located the site that Dee had described, and at a location situated upon the tallest hill at the mouth of the bay, he erected the fort.
And so Jim's conclusion is that the remains of the tower is all that is left of a small fort designed by John Dee and built by Brigham and his men. He asserts that the fort was completed in 1583, but it was abandoned when the colonization effort failed. He further stated that Sir Gilbert never made it to the fort because in 1583 he was lost at sea in a violent ocean storm. With his death, the Dee River colony fell apart from a lack of interest.
But all of these theories are just speculation, a swag, scientific wild-ass guess. The only hard evidence collected thus far was carbon-14 data of several samples of the tower's cement that was obtained by a team of researchers from Denmark and Finland in 1993. And the results suggest that a probable date of production of the cement was sometime between 1635 and 1698. So these results directly points to and supports the Benedict Arnold built it theory. So I guess it's a windmill. So according to most mainstream scientists, archaeologists, and scholars, that's who they think built it. Early English colonists in the mid-1600s. Most likely so. But from a personal point of view, I'm not ready yet to toss out the Prince Henry Sinclair theory. This thing just screams Sinclair and the Knights Templar. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you like what I'm doing here, would you do me a favor and please tell your friends about my YouTube channel? I would appreciate it. And please, check out my website at historyonahog.com. I'm already working on my next series and should have it out in a couple of months. So please stay tuned. Until then, be careful out there and ride safe. I'll see you next time on History on a Hog.